The Florida Panthers defeat the Ottawa Senators by a final score of 3-2 in overtime, despite blowing a 2-goal lead. There were some line shakeups. The defense got on the scoring, but they still found a way.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, February 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're at your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at @LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $150 if your first bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So the Florida Panthers starting 4 out of their next 5 at home and coming off a high from that 9-2 victory over the Tampa Bay Lightning, and with the Ottawa Senators coming off that big win last night in Tampa Bay, these teams were pretty juiced up, as it was a really intense first period with a lot of shots. Goalies were standing on their heads on both sides, and then the game slowed down. Panthers take the lead early, 19 seconds in, thanks to Aaron Ekblad. And then in the third period, the Ottawa Senators find a way to get 2 goals on the board with Shabbat and Timmy Stützle as well. But the Panthers find a way, despite their forward lines being contained, to find a way to win 3-2 in overtime, thanks to Anton Lundell getting in on the scoring. And here to break down this 3-2 overtime win for the Florida Panthers over the Ottawa Senators, their second of 4 meetings. It is a Winans Wednesday, which means it's Jacob Winans here. Jacob, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me. It's always good to be here, especially after a win. I feel like we've been fortunate lately to get to recap a few wins. So yeah, this was a pretty fun one.
Yeah, a very fun one, but also a different type of hockey game that we've had as far as this one. I mean, yeah, like I said earlier, Aaron Ekblad scores the first goal 19 seconds in. Beautiful give and go with Carter Verhaeghe, first shot, first shift of the game as well. The game doesn't necessarily slow down from there. 14 minutes of 5-on-5 the rest of the way. I mean, the Panthers, they were eating at the Ottawa defense on their forecheck. That top line, especially Barkov, was extremely well on the puck as well. Especially when it came to getting multiple chances on net as well. But really, when when it flipped to the second period, it really changed and all, where the Florida Panthers took a while to get their first shot on goal. They were having a hard time through the neutral zone as well through it, and breakouts were very sloppy. The power play opportunities that the Florida Panthers had, Montour even spoke about it in the middle of the intermission, that they were trying to get a little too cute, forcing some passes. The amount of times I saw force feeding to Sam Reinhart on the power play, and then he misses a net, one from Tkachuk down low to Reinhart in the middle, and then one from the flank, both times, a few times that I recall that he missed the net as well. But I mean, you think about it, after the Ottawa Senators get those 2 goals in the third, Maurice has some line shakeups. They don't necessarily score, but it creates that spark as well, and something that you could plug every so often for a game like this, when it's the defense that's getting in on the scoring, which got to give credit to the Florida Panthers there, with the second line getting there hard on the puck in the middle of a line change, pinballs around, Montour gets the goal scoring there as well. But it really came down to really the Panthers just digging deep, and just when it comes to just how another team is amped up after recently playing while you having a few days off, it sometimes the momentum from them last night can carry over to a night like tonight.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ottawa came in. I was surprised at the energy that they brought. We know the games against Ottawa tend to get chippy. They get physical. Always going to be the case when you've got the Tkachuk brothers lining up against each other. There's always added juice to that. We didn't really see anything spark up until the third period, really.
Yeah.
But with that said, Ottawa they did not play like a team that had just played a tough game in Tampa. They played like a team that was fresh, motivated, and the Panthers are going to have to get used to that because they're going to get everybody's best shot the rest of the way. And that's kind of what you hope for the Panthers getting ready for the playoffs. You have to get used to those type of games. And Ottawa definitely brought that tonight. I thought the Panthers maybe took them a little bit. I don't want to say took the game for granted, but I don't think they brought their best stuff against this team. I think like Montour said in the intermission, being a little too cute. There were some forced passes. There were some shots that should have gotten to the net that didn't. It seemed like there was a little bit less of the willingness to create traffic in front of Korpisalo tonight. There wasn't a whole lot of chaos in front of his net, which is what the Panthers really thrive on. But even so, good teams have nights like that. It comes. You can't bring it 1,000% every night. And being able to get 2 points out of it is huge because they no one on the Panthers would tell you they played their best game tonight. Far from it, but they come out with 2 points. Really on the back of some depth scoring, some blue line scoring. And even though the offense was a little bit disjointed, the passing was a little bit disjointed. For the most part, the defense was pretty solid. The structure was still there, and it probably ends in regulation, if not for a ridiculous solo effort from Timmy Stützle getting that game tying goal. So as far as energy, I feel like the energy was fine. I just think the focus was lacking a little bit. Solid C+ performance, but getting 2 points in a C+ performance that's really all you can ask for a contending team.
Mm-hmm. And also the power play for the Senators was just moving a lot better than the Panthers as well. I mean, they were getting their redirections on net as well. And got to give credit to Sergei Bobrovsky where the rebound control was excellent. There was one where there was a shot from the half wall in the first period. He gets it, and then Timmy Stützle is right there to go driving into the net, and he's like moving to his right to get in on the blocker as well. That was a big early save that Sergei Bobrovsky had as well. And then Tarasenko on a breakaway after Bennett was stripped off the puck as well. So I mean, the sticks were great for the Ottawa Senators as far as their back checking as well. So and listen, you said how the physicality didn't pick up on it. I mean, the intensity really started to pick up when it was after whistle. It was right before the under 14 TV timeout where Brady Tkachuk gets an extra hack on Sergei Bobrovsky, which through 2 periods they only allowed 1 shot to Brady Tkachuk as well, and that you could really see the change in the game and really the focus level of both teams when it came to that part.
Yeah, and I think play style wise and talent wise, Ottawa is on paper and just talent on that roster better than their record indicates.
Oh yeah,
that's definitely a team that has some players. They can win on any given night. I get the saying you are what your record says you are, and yes, they are a very very underperforming team. But in a small dose, in a one night sample, they can give you anything that any good team in the NHL can give you. And I think the Panthers got their best tonight. And it doesn't take much to draw the Panthers into a game. And I think when you see Bob get a little frustrated, guys are getting too close to him. Brady Tkachuk is hacking at his glove. Bob gets up and throws a punch, and that kind of sparks the whole thing. Gets the team going because as a player in front of Bob, you don't want him to feel like he has to do that. You want your goalie protected. You don't want your goalie getting touched. And if Bob is getting agitated and frustrated, that means someone's gotten too close. And as a defenseman, as a defender of your goalie, that's got to wake you up a little bit. And like, hey, maybe I got to do a better job of protecting my goalie so he doesn't have to get involved himself. And I think Bob's really smart about picking his spots when he does, when he wants to show some emotion, when he wants to get involved in that kind of thing. And I think that was a really, really important time for him to do that. It sent a message to Tkachuk on the Senators. It sent a message to the Panthers D that it was time to wake up. It was time to get serious around the crease because the Senators were getting in his face. And I think part of the issue is just kind of the sluggish middle area of the game where the Panthers weren't capitalizing. It's never good to fall behind early, and you end up chasing the game. But also, it can be tough to get ahead so early too. Aaron Ekblad scored within the first minute of the game, and when that happens, you kind of see them take their foot off the gas a little bit. It's almost as if they're playing with house money, and sometimes you get a little too comfortable.
Yeah, definitely. Panthers definitely got too comfortable there, and we saw what happens when you force something out, or you are pinching in your zone, which happened with the Timmy Stützle breakaway as well. That's he's going to beat you a lot of the time as well. And just positioning around the crease. That's what happened with the first goal by Thomas Chabot, which Nico Mikkola crashed into Sergei Bobrovsky. Thankful that the Panthers did not challenge that, by the way. But we're going to transition to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss more about our 3 stars of the game and when we thought this game was won or lost. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed, and we're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 300 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work, use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed that just doesn't help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. And listeners to the show can get to a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Also, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. And get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 dollar bet. Excuse me. That's $150 if your first bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, same game parlays, and exclusive props and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Segment number 2 here on this Wednesday, February 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday, a Winans Wednesday edition of the show. So, Jacob, 3 stars of the game for the Florida Panthers here in this 3-2 overtime win for the Cats. Third star of the game is going to go to Brandon Montour for me. Does score the second goal of the game. And crazy, both those goals by Montour and Ekblad show fourth of the season for both of them as well. And Montour got the secondary assist on the game winner on the night as well. So 2 points for Montour on the night. Second star has to go to Sergei Bobrovsky, 7 wins in a row, and another one where it's 2 goals or less. So 6 of the 7, 6 of them have been 2 goals. The other one was a shutout. So once again, Bobrovsky being sharp, 28 of 30 on the night. And then first star of the game, got to get it to the guy who got the game winner on the on the sharp angle shot, Korpisalo goes low. Anton Lundell goes high on the game winner to make it a 3-2 overtime win. And Anton Lundell got his 100th point the other night in Tampa Bay and just continues on. And he's 2 goals away, from his 10th goal of the season. Jacob, your 3 stars of the game, my friend.
Yep. I hate to do this, but I'm gonna go with the same 3, just in a different order. My 3rd star is Anton Lundell. Could be higher given that he scored the game-winning goal. I feel like prior to that he was relatively regular most of the game. Didn't really stand out, but a clutch moment gets the 2 points. My 2nd star is going to be Brandon Montour. He was really good for me. I feel like he could have shot a little bit more. I feel like he was a little hesitant to shoot, but 2 points is 2 points, and it's good to see his offense finally coming into form this year. You can really see him picking up the pace offensively right now, and another multi-point game for him. He's starting to look more like the Montour of last year. Then my 1st star of the game is NHL All-Star Sam Bobrovsky. Sergei Bobrovsky was fantastic. Again, he's been rock solid lately. He made a couple of breakaway stops. He was really good tracking pucks on deflections. His rebound control was excellent tonight. The pucks you want to stick to him are sticking to him. The pucks where it's going to be a rebound, he's kicking it off to the boards out of danger, which is a really underrated skill. Sometimes you can't prevent a big rebound, but you can direct it to a certain area. And he's really, really improved in that area of his game, which I feel like flies under the radar a lot. For a veteran goalie, that's a thing that you have to be good at. And you can tell he's put in the work to direct the rebounds out of danger areas when there's going to be a rebound. So I think he really flashed that tonight. He's my 1st star. The Panthers don't win that game without him. And then honorable mention, I'm going to give one to Gus Forsling and one to Eetu Luostarinen. And I think Eetu was great on the PK. And then when he got moved up to the second line late, the second line immediately had a couple of good scoring chances. So I feel like he was good, being flexible, and Forsling's just been rock solid. He's been the Panthers' best defenseman this year, and he had another good one tonight.
League leader in plus minus, Gustav Forsling as well.
What is he, plus 38 right now? Something like that?
Yeah, I have to double check, but it's stupid good as far as that.
Yeah.
But moment when I thought this game was won or lost is when the line shakeups happened. I don't think I saw Cousins, Gadjevich, and Stenlund at all in the final few minutes in the 3rd period. If anything, that Maurice really shortened the bench. So my moment is going to be when the lines got shaken up with Eetu Luostarinen going on to the second line, and Lomberg going onto the line with Anton Lundell and Evan Rodriguez. And the stats might say a -1 for that line with Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, and Eetu Luostarinen. The one goal that was against was the one where Montour was up on the play, and then Tkachuk was the one back and playing defense, and then Mikkola goes for the reach in on Timmy Stützle as well. So not gonna, numbers don't tell the whole story as far as Eetu Luostarinen just consistently being on the puck and just getting in front of that net as well on the offensive side. They were creating so many different opportunities. And like the broadcast said, the only line that wasn't touched at all in that was the top line of Barkov, Reinhart, and Verhaeghe on the night. And there was a point where they didn't give up a single shot on goal throughout a good portion of the game. They ended up giving up 4. But there was a point where it was like 8-0 at one point. And that's when they saw after that, there was a little bit of a push by the Sens. Your moment when you thought this game was won or lost.
Yeah, mine came in overtime prior to the Lundell goal. And it started off with a moment where I was scratching my head and almost screaming at the TV, "What are you doing?" Because the Ottawa had the puck and Matthew Tkachuk just absolutely charges the goal line. I think it was Thomas Chabot
who had 2-on-1.
And I'm like, what are you doing? Like charging right at a defenseman that is a much better skater than Matthew Tkachuk is, and leads to 2-on-1 for Ottawa. And if they had scored on that, I'd have been pretty upset because that was a poor decision from Chucky. But My moment where the Panthers win the game is not allowing that 2-on-1 to turn into a goal. The partial block, the save on that play was huge, and the Panthers were able to turn it and go back the other way with possession. And they didn't give Ottawa the puck again the rest of that overtime prior to Lundell scoring. So that the overtimes, 3-on-3 overtime, it's usually trading chances until someone scores, and it usually does not take many chances in that trade off. And the Panthers give one up, you stop it, you go score the other way. That's typically how 3-on-3 goes. And if you can get a stop on one of those 2-on-1s, it's almost a lock that you're going to get a good chance going back the other way. So I feel like that's when the Panthers won the game, was stopping that big Ottawa chance in overtime.
Yeah, taking away, closing in the gaps, taking away the lanes, and we didn't really mention on the night of how many block shots there were for the Ottawa Senators on the night. They were consistently getting in on that, and then the Panthers they won the game by taking away that shooting lane for the Ottawa Senators. Blocks were 29-9 Ottawa on the night, so the puck was in the send zone a lot. Just had a hard time getting to Korpisalo between the pipes as well. But the Panthers make it up by getting closing one on their own, and then Anton Lundell with the winner to give the Panthers a win and to extend to continue on their lead in the Atlantic Division. Same amount of games played against the Boston Bruins. So still building up, continue to build off as they extend their lead to 6. But we're going to transition to segment number 3, where we're going to discuss more about how tonight's game could be a good thing for the Florida Panthers, of them not playing their best, getting the best from the oppositions, and the different situations that the Florida Panthers have found themselves in the last few weeks. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. It is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because at eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV with the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Back on this Wednesday, February 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday. And Jacob, it's crazy. There has been 7 games played since the All-Star break. A lot. You see the measurement of games whenever you look at the standings. You see the letter and then the number L10 for last 10 in the standings. Well, the Florida Panthers 9-1-0. But let's look. But 9-1-0 goes all the way back prior to the All-Star game. Actually, 3 games back prior to the All-Star break. And think about this. We spoke about regulation wins and being the ability to win on the road, which they have that opportunity on Thursday night against the Carolina Hurricanes to tie the record. But also, it's all about the fact that where the Panthers were not familiar with earlier in the season, they were getting familiar with, which you talk about 2 straight back-to-back wins past regulation in Pittsburgh and Long Island. You think about coming back home after the All-Star break and then falling flat and all as well, and the offense not going. And then at the time, I was thinking Panthers are going to learn a little bit of a lesson like from this. Top line was neutralized as well. And if the Panthers lost this game to Ottawa, I was thinking kind of the same thing. I was thinking along this same lines as the Philly game. This is going to be a good lesson for the Panthers to learn as far as how to come out, because again, like you said, there are going to be guys in the locker room who are going to say they probably didn't play their best game as well. So you escaped. And then in between all that, all the games that they won, the prior games that they won, all by multiple goals as well. So it just goes. It just says that this team is just basically ready for it, for not all types of situations, but a good amount of situations that has come their way with teams that are fighting and clawing for just pride. Because I don't know if Ottawa's clawing for the playoffs. I wouldn't say they are, but just for and you think about the upcoming schedule, you're going to see that as well. Especially on the home part of it, with 3 teams in Washington, Buffalo, and Montreal who are playing for pride as well. So this is great. It brings that playoff feel for the Florida Panthers as well. And also, even though Korpisalo hasn't played well this year, he was signed as their starter. As far as structuring their back-to-backs, they put Forsberg in against Tampa, and then Korpisalo against Florida. There's a little bit of a respect factor too with the team as well. So, this is great for the Panthers.
I agree, and I think there's a couple things to this, but we at this time of year and where the Panthers sit in the standings and just what they've done the past couple of years, everything now is with an eye towards the playoffs. Everything now is about playoff readiness. We're in that mode now. Everything is about playoff readiness, and no, 3-on-3 is not playoff hockey. You're not going to see a 3-on-3 in the playoffs. 3-on-3 sudden death does not simulate playoff hockey, but the pressure of those late game moments, you will absolutely feel that in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
The 1-goal games, the tie games, you will feel that in the playoffs. And I think this time of year, a lot of the games that prepare you for the playoffs are not against playoff teams, because when it's 2 playoff teams going against each other, sometimes there's just a level of comfort in the fact that they're both playoff teams. They're both looking towards the postseason. They don't necessarily need the 2 points against another playoff team. It doesn't affect them that much. You might not get, say, Toronto's best just because you're playing against Toronto late in regular season. It may not impact the standings at all. And that's 2 teams that aren't playing for pride. That's 2 teams that are playing with an eye towards the postseason. But when you play a team that's sitting outside, you're playing a team that has a lot of young guys, a team that comes in really hungry. Then you can really you can feel a little bit more of what a playoff game is going to be like, especially a team like Ottawa, who has playoff level talent. They haven't performed at a playoff level, but they have playoff hockey talent on that team. And you're going to get their best anytime you play them. And I think that prepares you for the playoffs. I think that third period, it was really annoying, really frustrating, but you saw not a lot of room in the neutral zone. You saw the refs not calling anything. Letting guys play through stuff blatant penalties. And refs are just letting them play. And there are stretches in the playoffs where that's going to happen. And you have to be ready to fight through that. I think as far as playoff readiness, that's what the Panthers have to have their eye on right now. And being in all those type of situations is good. And you mentioned overtime, and the Panthers really hadn't had a lot of overtime experience the first half of the season. I prefer it that way. The games later in the year tend to get closer, tend to get tighter. You'll rack up some overtime experiences later in the season. Early in the season, I don't like that. I want to see games end in regulation. You don't want to add up the mileage on your guys' legs, and you also don't want to end up in a situation like the New York Islanders where they're in every game, and you can just have the worst luck in the world in overtime and find yourself in a bad spot in the standings. So I'm not worried about their lack of overtime games, and I think playoff readiness is the name of the game. And right now they're playing well in a lot of these situations, these 1-goal games, these tie games, these tense, chippy moments late game. the Panthers are getting used to it, and they're going to have to be ready for that come postseason.
Yeah, speaking of a few refs letting him play, I remember Tarasenko got Forsling up high, no call on a face-off. Bennett gets cross-checked in the leg. Kind of brought us a little bit of PTSD to Nico Hischier and Barkov as well. And also, you spoke about the Islanders. They had that 3-goal lead slip against the New York Rangers in the Stadium Series, which even though Noah Dobson has had a great season, he was the one with the turnover at the end, which over the difference between regulation plus overtime wins to their regulation wins is 16. 22 minus 16, that's 6. So, and they've won 23 games as well. So, and 14 of overtime losses. So, just on the wrong side of on on the wrong side of luck when it comes to overtime as well. But the Panthers, they've been on the right side as far as that, which ending these games in regulation. Also testing with defensive zone draws when the other team has the 6-on-5. You're gonna be prepared for that later on down the line.
That's huge.
Yeah, and especially when you have that opportunity to get that last change. Which, by the way, there was times during the game where I saw the fourth line just containing that top line of Ottawa as well, and just had them in the zone for like over a minute as well. I do want to give that part really stuck out to me at one point in the night as well. So just continues to show that when they are at home during the playoffs, that they feel that they can get any matchup that they want there as well. So got to be encouraged by what you see out of the lines that continue just roll. And we shouldn't expect these lines to stay. I'll be surprised if they do, but we'll discuss that more on Thursday's show if they do. That was honestly, in my opinion, I think it was just for a spark as well. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this post-game edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Another successful Winans Wednesday. The Panthers win 3-2 in overtime over the Ottawa Senators to bring this season series 2 games for the Florida Panthers, 0 for Ottawa. Thank you for joining me on the show, and tell everybody where they can follow you online.
Yep, you can follow me on X at Jacob Winans 8, and I will be back here next Wednesday.
Awesome. Next Wednesday will be the recap of Buffalo at home as well. So see you then, my friend.
Looking forward to it.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steve Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.